Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Latina Success. Today, I have two amazing ladies with me, Jimena, and we have a special guest, which is Susana Cabrera. Susana is a great friend of mine who is another amazing Latina who has been doing a great impact here in the corporate world in the United States, but also now growing with helping another companies grow too. She has been working for Cisco and SAP and other big companies. Also, she has been built her own companies. And I think one of the things that she's coming to talk today here is how to focus when we are launching our company or a product. And I think that is a topic that for a lot of us is a big challenge, really to focus at the end of the race and not get distracted by many great ideas that come along in the way. So welcome, Susana.
Well, thank you very much, Jessica and Jimena, for having me with you guys today. It is a pleasure, and it's also a great opportunity to share some of my learnings and just to embrace others, to lose the fear. That's how I like to call it.
Love it.
Yeah, I think that part is really important to lose the fear because it's a kind of it can be a disease. Fear can show us what is most important for us and how to protect it, our vulnerability. But the problem is that many people get paralyzed by fear, so they don't do things, right?
Absolutely right. I think that you said it absolutely well, Jimena. The problem with fear is that fear cripples inside of us and completely stop us right on our tracks. And it stops us because we start listening to what I call those voices of doubt. And you start just asking yourself questions that in reality, they're just the product of your mind. They're not there. The only person that sees that is you, while your potential and what the external world see about you is completely different. And that's why I think that once you sit down with yourself and you ask those questions to yourself, what am I afraid of? And then you start unveiling that and become more curious about it, then you find out that those things that you're afraid of are just the product of your mind. And if you try, and if you push that wall, what you're going to see is, yes, challenges. Life is full of challenges. They're all challenges that you can overcome and that you can just move out of your way, learn from them. Some things are going to be harder than others, but like anything, you learn. And if you're open to learning, then you can tear down all of those walls and fear becomes a little bit less less stopping you and more enabling you. That's where I think that it's the key. Make fear work for you instead of fear stopping you.
Absolutely. And I think something that you will like to describe for us, you have a big experience in the corporate world. And I'm pretty sure a lot of people who is right now in the startup world are listening to us. And they have these two problems, the fear and also probably that perception of I'm not doing the right thing as the big companies know how to do it. And sometimes we underestimate our skills or our process, thinking that, because they are bigger, they know how to do it better. But they always need somebody who help them like you how to get through that grow, right? And it's not because they probably have a team of 5 people means they are less valuable than the corporate who has thousands of people working for them. So I don't know if you can, explain us your experience in that corporate world and how you are bringing that experience also now to other companies.
Absolutely. As you know, and I published this as a story that I share as I was getting ready to have this conversation with both of you over the weekend. And I built my own company while I was working for corporate America. And everything starts from an idea. Now, that idea, you take it from from being small to then growing until you scale it. Understanding that everything has a process, like us humans, we're not born savvy and grown up. We are born as babies and we go through a process and learn and then develop and get to where we are. So same thing is the life of a company. So you start small, and the key is to first, what's your value proposition? What is it you bring to the table that is different? And then focus on that and your priorities. What is that you prioritize instead? And that's where what I call focus on running your race like an athlete. So when you're an athlete, you actually focus on what is that is your sport, and you focus on your race instead of looking to the sidelines. There is going to be tons of distractions. If you lose focus and you pay attention to the distractions, you might continue growing, but your growth is going to be first slower, and second, you might hit challenge that you could avoid if you focus on what was mainly important for you and your value proposition. What is that you bring to the market? When you go to corporate America, yes, like that corporation has scale, and as a result has the ability, not only the ability, it requires more resources. It covers a broader spectrum. It covers a lot of portfolio as a small company of probably 1-2 products or services. It covers a full portfolio of offerings or products. That requires dedicated teams so that they can actually take that specific value proposition to the market. Additionally to that, they have partners. So they grow, they leverage the ecosystem. They go out and they take their value proposition into the market in a way that is exponential. So because of that, they need more resources. They need more people. But that doesn't make your small company less important. There are two different stages, and that's what you need to understand. You're in a stage different than a big corporation. Is your aspiration to get there? Well, you are going to work through, and I had to go to investors. I got investors to back me up so that I could go global, so that I could go national with my product line. But it is a process, and you have to trust the process and work in the process. And all of these require stay focused and prioritize. So when you prioritize not only your attention, but you prioritize your resources, you prioritize your budget, you prioritize everything so that you can then achieve one at a time of those goals as you grow and scale.
I think what you said is really important, and I love the idea of a baby and a grown-up. Perhaps a corporation may be a grown-up and has knowledge because they've been around and they've learned. What I've seen in many enterprises, it's a kind of philosophical way. I'm a philosopher, so I'm gonna take things in my own arena. But I think it's really important to have that focus on the race, knowing who we are. If I know the identity of myself and my enterprise, then I can be able to secure that focus, kind of like an athlete. If the athlete doesn't know himself or herself, and they do not know what they are made of, kind of like Hercules. He had a great talent. He knew he was different. But when he met Philoctetes, or Phil, if you are trying to focus in the Disney movie, that guy actually has the structure of that potential on Hercules. So I think we need to focus on who we are so we can know what we want and get it. If we do not know who we are, then the other companies, the competition, everyone will be as a threat to our own values if we lose sight of that. So I think it is important to realize, and I don't know if you agree, that every corporation has lost themselves in the business. They are sure of who they are, and that is why they keep focused, right?
I know that people cannot see our faces, they can just listen to our voices, but as you can see, I'm agreeing with you all the way through. You are actually, I don't know if you read it, but that's exactly my LinkedIn article, is the character behind the numbers. And it's very much because of that. Like my framework, when I work with corporations now as a growth advisor, is what I call BAM synergy. So it's value amplification model. And it's fundamentally based on 3 pillars: align, engage, and monetize. Alignment starts with that individual. So what happens, you align to the company goals and North Star, but before you get there, you have to align the individual. And one of the biggest things, as you just described, is what are your values? What drives you from a value individual standpoint and integrity? So when we, for example, nowadays we face AI, what's the fundamental aspect that we need to never forget in AI is the ethical side of it. Why? Because if we lose that, we're going to get in a lot of troubles. And that's why the ethical side must be regulated, because that's what protects the values behind the humans. And as people, those values for me are kind of like, that's your fence. That's where you stay. That's what makes you who you are, and that's where you move. Doesn't makes you a person that is not open. Yes, like within your values is, for me, the principle one, respect. So respect means that I'm going to be open and welcome to other people's perspective. And I'm going to take from those perspectives what still align with my values, and also make me somebody that can welcome other ideas, to build my idea, including other perspectives. So I absolutely agree with you. Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's something that it's pure and simple, but it has a lot to do with personal insight and reflect on what I want and who I am, so I can deliver it. What I found in intervening in many enterprises is that the personality of the CEO basically transmit into the whole organization. So if the CEO doesn't agree with the values he or she already has, then the enterprise is going to be kind of like something weird that they will never be aside. So helping people to understand that and to give them context also lets them even recruit people that they are similar to what they already know. So I think it's, as you say, it's a fence that help us integrate and capture people with the same idea, the same values, so they will rise and they will thrive even in a personal and also a professional way. So I think it's as HR now, I think that is the most important thing. That's culture. And those are the things that makes enterprises wonderful. You don't need to have a playground to get people entertained. They simply are aligned with the values and the vision of the enterprise as if it were their own. So you're speaking the same language, right, between them. So yeah, it's amazing to see how many ideas collide. And I specialize with a test that I identify those values for the people, so they can understand and they can make it conscious about them. So yeah, it's interesting to see how the changing world is challenging us in many ways. But if I do know who I am, what is my corporation, my startup, or my business, then I will never lose focus on that change, right?
Correct. But there is also the question, Jimena, about, as an individual who you are after you go through trials and challenges, right? And then, but the question is really, when you're younger and you join the workforce, you're not necessarily fully there. You're still shaping that. You're still finding your way. So for me, at a corporation level, and I really look at what's your social responsibility, and this is part of being social responsible. So you have to be transparent about your principles and values, right? And I say that yes, every company has a different or unique purpose, meaning at the higher level, right? Depending on the service they provide or the product that they have. That's one thing. But then from a value standpoint, I think it's more based on, and it should be universal, right? So from a respect standpoint, ethics and honesty and transparency and integrity, like what are those core values so that when young people come and join the workforce, if they identify with those main core values, collaboration that you have, being very transparent about, they join and they have the freedom to continue to form and find their who I am. Because you at the age of 21, you're still forming that, and that's okay. It should be that way, right? So people could go in as an engineer and then decided that they want to go into a business side of the house, and that's okay too. So that's where, I say there's a social responsibility at the corporation level, so that you allow people to still define who they are, because at an early age, you're still in that stage. Later, and in the leadership side, I always say that's where you need to be, I don't want to use the word strict, but you do need to have rigor around who becomes a leader. Why? Because leaders have a major responsibility, and they have the responsibility of people. That's a big responsibility, and it comes along with consequences, because you could impact in a positive way or you can hinder the life of someone. So that's when it comes to leadership, I do feel very strong that we have to have rigor around how do you promote people, what's the development programs that you have, and if you hire a new leader, how you onboard them, how you make sure that they understand the culture, they become part of the culture, they contribute positively, and you will onboard them. The word itself, you onboard them. Otherwise, you leave them alone. It's not fair for the people, and it's not necessarily the right thing to do for that leader either, because that person also will experience a lot of frustration, and that just permeates into the entire organization.
Yeah, the insecurity of a leader can be really harmful to the whole organization, right?
Right.
So I wanted to ask you, I have a question, actually, knowing what you do, facing changes and the challenges of life in a corporate or even in a personal way, right? But change is inevitable, right? So could we call ourselves successful if we adapt to the changes that they are, or the challenges that they are being thrown to us? Or is it being successful not changing by the challenges that we are thrown? I think that's even a personal thing, because we see many employees coming and you hired me for this, so I am still getting this way. And they don't want to improve, they don't want to get resourceful, they don't want to even meddling with their personal lives. They simply I come here to do a job and that's it. Do you think being successful then it's something that has to do with adapting to the change and changing what you need, or being inadaptable and being true to yourself without any change whatsoever?
That's a great question, Jimena, because that's my approach is always change, right? It's like transformation requires the ability to change. And in today's world, not only in today's world, I'm going to say it has always been the case. We need to be adaptable. That doesn't mean that you're changing who you are. That only makes you open to learn. So if you are not in a continuous seek for learning, then you're going to you're going to stack in that place. Like you're not going anywhere else. That is professionally, that is personally. Like there are things that happens in your life that are going to require you to be adaptable. And to be adaptable, the first thing that you need to internalize is that the reason why we don't want to change is back to our initial discussion, fear. Because we don't want to let go from that makes us feel comfortable, secure, which at the end, it only stops us. So if you are open and you are adaptable, to use the word adaptability as your core foundation, then you can learn whatever you put your mind to. Like you could be today an English major, and tomorrow you could become a doctor. And the reason why is because the only thing that takes is for you to go back to school and learn. And that is adaptability at its core. So we need to be adaptable in any circumstance. Again, that doesn't mean that you change who you are. That means that you broaden your spectrum and that you are open to learn. That's my personal approach and the way that I manage my life, my clients and young people that ask me questions. I say the only thing that you need to do is to knock inside of you and look what fears are inside there that are stopping you to be open to learn.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that I really would love to hear from you, Susana, is how did you help the companies to overcome the challenges of focus, right? And what are the main problems that you see or obstacles that you see the companies faces when they are into that phase of growth?
That's a great question because here's what happens. So in companies, it's a little bit, I'm not going to call easier, but it's more tangible. And the reason why is because the first question is, what's your value proposition? And it's very much in your set of products or your set of services, right? So what normally happens is that especially small companies, well, big companies as well, I'm going to take that back. What happens is that they go by, I'm going to keep up with the Johnsons type of things, right? So if somebody's going in a direction and all over the sun, the stock market went up because a new toy came in, then everybody else wants to jump into the same thing. That could work if it's within the strategy of the company and what's the goals and the North Star. But if they're shifting gears all the time, that impacts, you can see it in the stock market, impacts the price of the stock, it plummets, they lose credibility. And that happens in a corporation as well. So, with small companies as well. So what focus means is, what are your priorities? Like, what's your plan in 1, 3, and 5 years? What's going to take you to achieve those essential milestones and goals that you have outlined? So there's a set of things that are going to help you to get there. So you first start with the outcome and you reverse engineer and you go and you say, okay, this is the outcome. And the way to get there is by clearly establishing this is what we're going to focus on, means this is what we're going to get resources. This is where we're going to invest in development. This is where we're going to put money towards innovation. This is where we're going to dedicate our efforts. Why? Because our promise is to grow to get here in 3 to 5 years. So that's when you prioritize and then you put what your resources and your efforts towards those specific aspects. And you put tools and you enable the organization, because I always say when I go into corporations is you have to create capabilities so that the company can actually be resilient. Very often you hear this whole thing of, well, people must be resilient. No, you need to make the organization resilient. The way you make an organization resilient is by creating the right capabilities. The right capabilities are, for example, leadership. Do you have the right development teams, the onboarding process? From a process standpoint, do you have the right tools, or the process simplifying, and adaptable, so that the operative model actually is adaptable to overcome and stay ahead of the game and adapt to changes and all of these elements. So when you have these pieces in place, then people that come in to fill the roles, they could be adaptable. Then you can ask, let's adapt to the changes because I'm enabling you to do so.
Absolutely. Well, Susan, I think we are hitting almost the end of this amazing conversation, and I can think about like 100 questions for you. So I think we will have to invite you again. But I don't know if there's anything else you would like, to add about this topic, what is between, the focus, the growth, the fear to grow, which I think also make me realize, like, not only as an individual, but like you say, as a company, sometimes you have to adapt a little bit, right, to that changes. Even your value proposition sometimes have to be tweaked a little bit, because once you start in the market, you realize that what you thought was your value proposition really is a little different, the perception from the client. So I don't know if there's anything else you would like to add around those topics.
Yeah, but I think that the main message I want to convey is that for you to stay ahead of the game, you need to be open to changes. Means you need to be open to learning. Additionally to that, with learning, there could come a lot of fears, but those fears are only inside of you. And because that's the case, you're the only one that can actually tear those walls down. You have to sit down and do a little bit of soul searching and say, what is that I want to do? Where do I want to get? How do I get there? And I always say to people, ask yourself your question of, what is to lose? When you learn, you lose nothing. You gain a ton. Even if you don't get to use that later on, no, you do. You have knowledge on something else you didn't have before. So if there is anything you need to do, from my point of view, is to set goals on what is that you are going to learn and get better at. I always say these stories that for many years now, probably over 15 years, I have people set goals at the beginning of the year, right? And these are all my goals I want to achieve. Long time ago, I teach that. And the only goal that I have is to conquer myself. Why? Because I know that if I work on that, and we never stop working on this, whomever tells me that they're already there, I'm going to say, okay, great. Good for you. I think that we are constantly conquering ourselves. So if that's your goal, then you open yourself to an amazing world, because then you can work on your biggest enemy, which is yourself. And not that we're bad. No, it's that we put in our minds things that they only exist in our minds. And we have to constantly challenge ourselves to get rid of that and open ourselves to other opportunities for growth.
Yeah, I agree with you. I've seen many people, and I don't know if you get those cases, but I think that's another podcast we need to do, because I've seen many people that they are not afraid of losing or of failure. They are more afraid of being successful, because it's the same thing that if I lose, People will stop inviting me. They will stop caring. I will lose friends. I will lose myself. But also, it's the same fear I found out with success. And it's something that people are most afraid of, because then I will lose my friends. People will stop inviting me, and I will not be true to myself. So it's something that I don't know if you've seen it, but I think that's another podcast. We need to see that main problem. But it's I heard of it, and when I began attending enterprises and helping CEOs to get their culture, they are really afraid of having success. So they stop everything and they cancel everything. They even stop talking to you, even ghosting you, because they don't want to be successful. They don't want things to improve. So it's something that it's a really nice topic to talk even later. But have you encountered those
Yes,
kind of problems?
absolutely. And here's the reason why. It's more about what I have found, Jimena. My experience is more about with success comes another set of challenges. So they know that. And then it's that, okay, I got very comfortable at this place and I'm okay. I'm fine. That's it. I am okay here. Because when you start growing and you start expanding, you have another set of challenges. I can tell you that from experience. When I built Delicious Bite as a small company, it was when I got investors and the pressure increases and you expand the market and we got more retail stores that wanted the product and you expand. Well, you have different challenges and the pressures are to a different level. So there is always pressure when there is growth potential and growth realization. So
yeah. We definitely need another podcast about that. The challenge once you are really successful, when you are in the growth. And I agree, because also comes with more responsibilities too, right? Which a lot of people is like, okay, I don't know if I want to deal with that. Well, Susana, Jimena, as always, it was a pleasure to have you both here. Susana, this was an amazing topic. Thank you so much for sharing, all your experience here. And well, I will see you soon.
Thank you so much for inviting me and for such an amazing conversation with you, Jimena, and you, Jessica. And well, I hope that we can help with our conversation today to take some of those fears down and help people just to see the incredible amount of opportunity. Regardless of the challenges, there are an immense amount of opportunities out there for everybody.
Yep. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.